Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien. Lead! And Livingston have the lead! Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates. And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome to another new episode of Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name's Angus and joining me this week are Ewan and Callum. How are you doing, guys?
I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. Just been watching a lot of Olympics, so I'm now an expert in canoe, slalom and taekwondo. But other than that, obviously watching us at the weekend as well, which we'll obviously go and talk about. But never mind me, I'm a regular here. We've been graced with the presence of Callum Brown. How you doing, mate? I haven't seen you in what seems like months.
Thanks for the introduction, mate. No, I'm doing well. Cheers for having me on. It's good to be back. Obviously, as Ewan said, we'll discuss things about the weekend and then about obviously the Aberdeen game. So no, I'm looking forward to getting into it and getting absolutely slaughtered throughout the podcast.
And rightly bloody so, given it this, I'm really busy. He doesn't even have a job, listeners. Like, honest to Christ, I've got 2 jobs. Angus has got a job. He's going to be going to uni. And we've got Bruni telling us he's too busy. Unbelievable.
He's looking down at the ground right now, feeling very ashamed of himself. So, yeah, we'll just keep going on. But, yeah, you can listen to this podcast and all of our episodes on your preferred podcast streaming sites, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Talk Livi, follow us, and subscribe if you can, so you won't miss another episode.
Coming up this week, we'll discuss our opening weekend defeat at Ibrox as the Lions were tamed by those ravenous bears.
It's the return of Talk Livi Question Time as we answer questions from you, the listeners.
And finally, we'll look ahead to our first Premiership home game at the Tony Macaroni Arena this season as we welcome Stephen Glass's Aberdeen.
So it was the fixture that nobody wants on the opening day of the season, a trip to face the champions Rangers. It turned out to be a comfortable afternoon for the Ibrox side as they eased to a 3-0 victory. Lads, what was our thoughts on the game?
I think it was kind of what was going to be expected, wasn't it? We all predicted kind of comfortable wins for Rangers. Me and Bruni are off to a flyer on the prediction league with 3-0 as well. So, but yeah, it was to be expected. I think when you concede after 7 or 8 minutes at Ibrox, you're kind of thinking the worst, and it's going to be a massacre. But I think we plugged away. I think I was saying to Angus just before we started recording, I think, yes, they won 3-0, but I don't think they were peppering our goal as such. I don't think they created a great deal in terms of really clear-cut chances. You wouldn't turn around and say, oh, Max really kept the score down type thing. It was a fairly comfortable afternoon for him as well. But I think, the first goal, it's really poor defending, and for us to concede another goal from a set play is really disappointing. And Penners is just poor from Penners in terms of the fact that he's left Hadji unmarked at the back post, he's caught under the ball, and then Hadji's done really well to work the space to get the shot away, and it's taken a deflection. Max has got no chance in between the sticks. But as I say, we kind of plugged away, and as the half wore on, we gradually started getting a tad more of a foothold in the game. Second half, I think, again, we plugged away. Jack Hamilton had a kind of half chance at 1-0 just as he came off the bench on the turn from the edge of the box. Drags the shot wide. It was the only real kind of opportunity we created in the game. That would probably be my biggest disappointment, as we in an attacking sense, we didn't offer a great deal. Iowa actually had a good chance first half as well. Dead ball, free header in the middle of the box, which he doesn't connect with very well. As I say, we plugged away and, the second goal kills us. We're down to 10 men at that point. Jesus had to come off. Again, it's kind of poor defending. Nobody's really just taking ownership, got rid of the ball. It's a fantastic finish from Scott Wright. Credit to him, credit where it's due. And then the third goal, it's a bit, someone just needs to take ownership and kind of get rid of the ball and clear the lines. And again, Roof's kind of tucked it away. But look, it's to be expected. You're going to Ibrox on the opening day. It's the first time they've had a really big crowd in since winning the league, almost 50% capacity at Ibrox. So it was always going to be a really tough afternoon for us. And we all know about kind of the struggles we've had during the Premier Sports Cup games with the issues we've had with COVID and things like that. So it's been quite disruptive. So I said coming away 3-0 or less, it would be a decent afternoon's work. And obviously disappointed with the result, more disappointed that we didn't offer a little bit more going forward, but it's fully expected that.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree at all. Going to the home of the unbeaten champions, I mean, that was, their 20th home victory in a row now? Unbelievable record. And you think of some of the teams that, like, how many times they beat Celtic during that. So that's not going to be the last time somebody's going to get beat 3-0 at Ibrox. That's not going to be the worst showing at Ibrox. Like, it's only going to get worse for some other teams. And yeah, considering how disrupted our kind of like start to the season was, it was, better than expected. I mean, I came on here and predicted 5-0. So, I'm very delighted that I'm not correct in all honesty. But yeah, I think you're spot on, Ewan, about it's not as if Rangers were, peppering the goal every time like they came up to the park or they got the ball. Like, we didn't really have our backs to the walls every time. I mean, Striek had a good game, but I don't think there was really many saves that you're like, oh, that was like unbelievable from him. He's really keeping us in this. He's keeping the scoreline down. So I guess like in a way that is, kind of a little bit of a positive to take from it is, that we did remain quite solid for, a large duration in the game from like the 70th to like the 70th minute or that. It was, it was fine. Like, obviously, again, we'd like to have maybe created a wee bit more, but against Rangers, we're probably not really expecting that. We were going to be limited to a very, very few half chances, so keeping the score down is essential. Going down to 10 men probably seemed to kill us. You could see like some of the players, like the final legs were kind of going. But yeah, the defending for the first and the third goals especially can't really be, accepted in a way. The first one, Penrice, it just ends up so far away from Hadji. Hadji's in a different hemisphere, puts the ball in the back of the net. But, we've got to learn from these things. And in all honesty, I'd rather make these mistakes against Rangers than I would against, a team who's kind of nearer us in the table. These games are a free hit. Get these silly things out of the way, work on it. And, when we go out to play other teams, let's make sure that we do the job then. But yeah, can't really say I'm too deflated or that about it. I mean, in all honesty, I was much more deflated following the Raith Rovers game in the Premier Sports Cup. So, never thought I'd say that. But yeah, we'll just have to go again.
Yeah, I think with about 50 minutes to go, I was, sitting on commentary basically saying, like, I'm fairly pleased with this. Like, I'm content. I think we've done ourselves proud. Obviously, in the end, it was a 3-0 defeat. It was 1-0 at the time I was saying that. But I think it's maybe a harsh 3-0. I don't know, as you have both alluded to there, they never peppered the goal. They never, created way too much, and Max wasn't, properly busy. In that sense, I'm content. And again, you have touched on it, hit the nail on the head in the fact that it's just frustrating the goals. It's not really a moment of brilliance by anybody that's unlocked the defence or, somebody's taken a 30-yard screamer. Do you know what I mean? I think that's more frustrating. Maybe it's a different game. They don't take the lead early on. Maybe I don't know how that affects the game. Maybe they sit back a wee bit more with that 1-0 lead, and they don't have to properly go for it, and that maybe helps the score for us, if you know what I mean. In terms of they've got that first goal, they've got the 1-goal cushion. They don't need to properly go for it. As we always speak about on previews against Rangers and Celtic. The longer we go at 0-0, the more frustrated the opposition fans get, and the opposition players as well. So it was a wee bit of a shame, that the goal's on 7 or 8 minutes. So it sort of kills that plan, because it was very, very unlikely that we were going to score yesterday on Saturday. It's annoying in a sense, maybe if you're being picky, that we've not created a lot of chances. Ayo Obalai, I think, as one of you mentioned there, it's a good chance. He's not got the right connection on it. I'm not going to be too critical of him, but you know, at Ibrox, it's a very good chance for Livingston standards. You know, it's a free header in the box, really. And then we had a couple in the second half, sort of half chances. Not really. I don't think we had a shot on target. I'm not sitting saying here, we could have taken something from the game. Not at all. But you know, Jack Hamilton had one from the edge of the box, literally just as he'd come off the bench. But I think, you know, he's a little bit off balanced. But yeah, we at times caused him a few problems. Maybe Goldson and Balogun looked a tiny bit shaky at the back, but you know, other than that, Rangers were very, very comfortable in the game. They deserved the victory. I just maybe feel that 3-0 was slightly harsh, but you know, again, as we all know, that you know, these aren't the games we'll be judged on at the end of the day. And we'll get into the Aberdeen game later on, but 3-0 at Ibrox, there are going to be teams that come to Ibrox and they get absolutely hammered. I think we were played off the park. You know, we were outclassed, obviously, by Rangers, unbeaten champions last year. But yeah, I don't think, you know, some of the reaction I've seen, I think, is a bit over the top. You know, I don't think we disgraced ourselves. You know, the defending's poor for the goals. You know, Davies touched on that himself in interviews and things. He's not happy at all with that. But you know, again, Angus pretty much nailed it as well. You know, I'd rather we made these mistakes maybe against the Rangers rather than a Ross County, a Dundee United in games that we should be looking to pick up our points in. But yeah, I'm relatively content without being, you know, overly happy that we've been beaten 3-0.
Yeah, I think, as you kind of touched on, Brady, a game at Ibrox isn't going to define our season. You know, that's not where our points are going to come from. You get anything against the Old Firm over the course of the season, it's bonus points. And you know, as I say, the only real disappointment for me is that we maybe didn't create a great deal. But it's when you've only got 25% possession, it's very difficult to go and create good chances in a game of football like that. There was a few players I would say that were missing. You know, we had so Jack McMillan was playing right back. We had Adam Lewis playing at left back. He's played predominantly in the middle of the park. Alan Forrest came back into the team as well. Was there any players that you thought had a decent game off the back of that game?
I don't think I can't really say like anybody particularly stood out, just because, you know, how little of the ball we probably actually had. I don't think there was an awful lot of, you know, everybody tried to do like what they could with the ball, but, you know, our back was against the wall, you know, like in terms of like clearing the ball and whatnot. Our main emphasis in that game was, you know, defending. What I would say though is that I was particularly impressed when Jace Kabaya and Jack Hamilton came on, and I thought that they did add a wee bit of a spark when they both came on, added a wee bit of energy that seemed to be needed. And I think also, like, you know, coming on at Ibrox, that shows a lot of great character from two young players that they came on and be like, you know what, like, we're going to try and knock our pan in, let's see what can happen. I think Jays was getting to a lot of balls on that left-hand side, unfortunately, before he got injured in that tackle with Kamara. But, you know, again, that also fills me with confidence that these are two players who, you know, they're not going to be satisfied just being like, oh, we're just young lads who come on every now and again. I think they want to, you know, cement their place in the team. And, you know, that's great for us because, you know, I don't think like Alan Forrest had his best game because, you know, he was probably not up to match fitness, in all honesty. I was surprised to see him play the full game. Worked tirelessly nonetheless. But, you know, like Kabay and that could come in one time and just be like, you know, a good performance, can see him starting in the next week. Same with Bruce Anderson. I think he had a very, very thankless job. I wouldn't say that he had a poor game either, but when you're up against basically a back four at all times by yourself, you know, you're not really going to get an awful lot of joy. He won a couple of corners and that. So I would, you know, fair enough to him as well. A wee special mention to Scott Pittman as well. I mean, obviously he's done a lot of great things at the club. He got to walk us out at a half full Ibrox as captain. So, you know, congratulations to him as well. It's another great thing for him to add to his resume. But anyone else who stood it to you guys?
Yeah, for me, I was gonna mention Max Stryek. You know,
goalies union. Union.
Yeah, no, but I think I wouldn't say we've given him a hard time as such on the podcast. I wouldn't say that at all. But you know, there was the debate last season, McCrory or Stryek, and I wasn't too confident that, you know, Max was our number one. That, you know, I've maybe strayed slightly to Robbie McCrory last season, but you know, the Max was very good as well last season. But I feel like Ibrox, you know, he commanded his area very well. I think as well in the obviously the penalty shootout, he did very well this season. But again, it's very early days. But I was just impressed with his overall contribution. His distribution was very good. I think we saw at times last season where we'd maybe give away the ball a couple of long kicks forward. I thought Robbie was a lot better at that last season. But Max has obviously gone away and worked on that, because I can't think of a long ball or a goal kick or whatever in this game that sort of went out of play or anything like that. I feel that Rangers, they try crosses into the box all the time, and I feel that maybe early doors they did it 3 or 4 times, and Max was straight off his line, claimed the ball. Again, last season he was punching a few of these. He was coming off his line and he was punching it clear, which as a supporter I'm not really keen on. I'd rather the goalkeeper tries to come out and claim it. And and credit to him, he did that at Ibrox, and I think Rangers sort of clocked onto that, because as the game goes on, you see it for the goals. They started putting low balls into the box, trying cutbacks, trying to cut inside and weave their way in from the edge of the box rather than from Tavernier and Bassey out wide, putting whipping crosses into the box because Max is off his line and claiming those crosses. So I think maybe fair play to him, but we mentioned it. It's not it's a 3-0 defeat, but we've got the likes of Tom Parks not even in the squad, Jackson Longridge, Josh Mullen, Ben Williamson. Just off the top of my head, obviously Ben couldn't play. I'm not sure what his role is going to be this season. It's a tough midfield to get into, I would say, but yeah, we're not going to be judged on these games against Rangers. And I'm not saying Steven Gerrard's going, oh, absolute beauty. Yes, they're missing Tom Parks. Do you know what I mean? But I think that we are missing a few good players, and I think we'll be fine this season. I was a wee bit worried, going into the campaign with the cup run. Obviously, we got through in the end, but I was a little bit worried, and was even more worried for Saturday, the fact that we'd maybe get 5 or 6 put past us. I'm not going to lie, especially with the fact that we weren't really up to speed with COVID. But that performance and sort of solidarity has given me the front that that we'll be okay this season, and we can kick on after this weekend, because it's a brutal start at Ibrox.
Yes, as we kind of touched on in the intro, it's the game nobody wants on the opening day of the season, isn't it? I agree with you on Max to an extent. I was with you, Bruni. I kind of edged on the side of Robbie McCrory last year. I thought he was the better all-rounder personally, despite the heavy criticism that Robbie came in for. Just like to be different. But I think Max has got some stiff competition. I think the boy Barden that's coming from Norwich, albeit I've only seen him really the once against Cowdenbeath, but I think he looked really assured in terms of what you were saying about coming for cross balls. He was really demanding in his box, and I think I'll go with you on that. I think Max did command his area a wee bit better in terms of coming and claiming the ball and taking loads of pressure off his back four. But you kind of mentioned the players that were out, and that's not going to be our back four every week. Davies mentioned it himself. Adam Lewis has been brought in to probably play a bit further forward, instead of at left back, but he has played left back, which is, his natural position. Jack McMillan, as much as we all love Jack on the podcast, Nicky Devlin's his first choice there, and it was good to see Nicky getting a few minutes at Ibrox as well. Hopefully that puts him in contention for the Aberdeen game. And as you say, I'm not convinced that's our centre-half partnership for the season. So you're going to Ibrox on the opening day with probably a bit of a makeshift back four as well. It's not your first choice, and that's not going to help either in terms of creating partnerships across that, because it's a very important area of the pitch where you need to have partnerships and kind of consistency with it. So, look, it's not the worst result. Some of the reactions been over the top, but we'll put that one to bed and we'll go on to Aberdeen next week. It's the return of Talk Livi Question Time, as we answer your questions about all things Livi. Now, first up, we have a question from Douglas Horn. Can you see any more signings coming in before the transfer window closes? And could you see any outgoings before the window closes too? I think that actually kind of coincides with one of the questions Kieran sent us in as well, talking about players potentially coming in. What's your thoughts on any further business between now and the end of the window?
For me, I would like to see maybe another centre-half or two coming into the club. I feel like that's the main area that we probably need bolstering. For the most part, I'm happy with everywhere else, in all honesty. I mean, Callum alluded to it in the last segment we just did there about Ben Williamson in the midfield. The midfield is, stacked. There's a lot of players in there. We don't really need an awful lot. And I feel like if anybody's going to leave the club, it's going to be within that position, in all honesty, maybe through, I don't know, loan. But I can't really think of anybody coming to my head right now who we would loan out, in all honesty. But yeah, centre half for me, I think that we could do with a wee bit more cover, especially if, Davey wanted to play Obalai into the midfield, like he stated when he signed him on the pre-contract. Obviously, we've only got Parks and then Kelly, who, according to the Ross County fans that I know, is actually a left back. So we really only do have him, Parks and Fitzwater, who are, the natural centre halves. Maybe some cover there would be not too bad. Thinking off the top of my head, don't know what the situation with him is, but Leo Hielda, who was at Ross County last season, maybe not a bad shout. Obviously, you're talking about Celtic who are in like a rebuild right now. They're probably going to bring in a good couple of players. He's not played any of the recent games for them, either in the Champions League or in the league just there against Hearts, despite him not having any players really. I think that's the only one off the top of my head I could be like would be a too bad a signing. I think he's 6'2", and he was all right for Ross County last year. I think Celtic could maybe look at us as well and be like, this is a decent place for him to learn his craft and apply his trade a wee bit before going back with a wee bit more experience. But I've got no idea what the situation is with him at Celtic. He could be somebody they're looking to punt permanently, but that's the only thing I can think of there. Outgoings, nothing's really coming to my head either, and I think that this squad is basically, if they were going to have left, they probably would have done so by now. But not too sure. You guys got any different opinions?
Just on that Hield, I'm surprised he's not playing in a back three for Celtic with John Kennedy and Bobo Balde, the state they're in at the minute. But I don't really know. I do agree in the fact that we probably need more defensive cover. I'm not really sure though, in terms of Davies alluded to it himself. I'm not really sure that we're in the market again. I'd like to see somebody on loan from I don't really know the rules in terms of the transfers. I'd love to be able to know that, but I don't know. Have we got enough loans? I think that's maybe 3 or 4 now. Barden, Adam Lewis, Ben Williamson. I'm not really sure on that front if you're allowed a maximum of players in on loan from domestic play and down south as well. Maybe we look at a Big Six team in the Premiership down south, and we try and get a young up and coming defender in on loan. That's maybe the only thing that I'd be able to look at in terms of our budget, because again, Davies mentioned it. I don't think we've got we've got the wages probably to do that. We've got a squad of maybe 24, 25 now. So it's a big squad, but I think we're set in pretty much all areas. But yeah, to answer the question, I'd probably like to see a central defender in, just to challenge the likes of Obalai, Fitzwater, Parks, whoever it may be, because as Angus touched on, we're light in those areas, but I'm fairly happy with the squad. We'll come on to it in a wee bit, but we're making our best 11s as such, which is obviously very hard at the minute. But we've got depth all over the park for me, other than maybe at central defence. Midfield's very, very strong, especially in the centre of midfield. We've got 4 or 5 that can play out wide, and 2 or 3 up front as well, which I think we're doing well on. So I'm fairly happy though with the business that we've done. But yeah, a centre half for me.
Yeah, I would go much along the same lines. You guys have really said it all. I think we've got maybe a centre midfield. We've got plenty of cover in there, and we're looking at playing kind of a 4-3-3 going forward as well. So got plenty of centre midfielders there. I think we've got you've got the likes of Anderson, Riley, Hamilton, all vying for kind of one position there. And then, as you mentioned, plenty of cover in the wide areas, got plenty of cover kind of left back, right back. So I'd probably say maybe another centre half to come in, and as you say, almost just add a bit of competition there. But I think we've probably done most of our business. We tend to try and do most of our business quite early. We have certainly done since Davey's been at the club. We always try and get it done fairly early for the start of the season. So I don't see many more comings and goings in the coming weeks. But we were talking about best teams. You kind of mentioned it there, Bruni. Got a question from Andrew Johnston. What formation would you play with the team? And then Bruni, your dad, who you've told to stay off Twitter, sent us in a question last minute as well. Assuming a full squad, what's the best starting 11, best formation? He's got about 40 questions in this one. Surprised he had enough characters, did Colin. But And do we have the players to still play kind of the Livi way, which we've become accustomed to the last few years? So, Callum, do you want to send a wee message to your dad? Let him know your thoughts on the podcast.
Not speaking of that guy. No. In terms of formation, I mean, we're pretty much set in stone now to play the 4-3-3. Maybe a variation of that's a 4-2-3-1 for me. That could be chopped and changed throughout the game, and I think that was fairly successful last season. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that during that unbeaten run, it was pretty much a 4-2-3-1. Scott Pittman playing more as a number 10. That's a bit of a difficult one for me. I'm not really sure if Pitt's a number 10 or if he's just a box-to-box midfielder. Maybe we'll see more of that this season. But other than that, if we want to run through the 11s, if we're set on formations, I don't imagine any of us are going to play a 3 or whatever. But maybe we are. I don't know.
I mean, if I was to pick my team just now, it's quite difficult because there's a number of new players that have come into the club who we've maybe only seen kind of glimpses of. So mine's probably going to err on the side of caution, but I would have Barden between the sticks. I really like what I saw in the first game, and the guy is coming from a Premiership football club as well, down south, a Premier League club. I'd have Nicky Devlin right back. I'd probably say Fitzwater and Parks as a centre half pairing, and then Jacko at left back. Midfield 3. I'd like to see Obalai play in there because he was given a big rep, and I think we need that naturally more kind of destructive presence in the middle of the park. And I'd probably have, again, can toss and turn with it, but I'd probably have Pitts and Sibbs kind of either side of him, centre midfield just now, and then I would have across my front 3. Again, it's quite difficult. I've only seen glimpses. I'd probably say Josh because of the threat he offers you from dead balls, his delivery. Josh Mullen when he's available, Anderson, and then Montano on the other side. Again, I've liked what I've seen from him so far. So if you're going with a 4-3-3, which it looks like we're set on kind of going with, certainly the start of this season, that's what I would err on just now.
Yeah, my team's not too dissimilar. I would maybe switch up a wee bit and do maybe more of a 4-2-3-1. Maybe playing one player kind of a wee bit closer to Bruce Anderson, but very, very similar to your team you've named. I went for Stryjek and goals though. Backline's the same. Longridge, Parks, Fitzwater, and Devlin. I'd like to see that get some consistent game time. Obalai is one of the proper holding player, the player who will just go and disrupt the game and give the ball to the better players. Next to him, closest to him, I've actually gone for Pittman. I would say I would like to see him more of that kind of a box to box because I would like to see Andrew Shinney play closer to the striker. I think he'll be somebody who has proper real quality and especially with the kind of forward line that we'd like to play with. Well, what I'd like to play with, he'd be the ideal person, to be supplying them with, balls down the channels and then also making those late runs into the box to, get goals himself. Left line, of course, Alan Forrest, always going to back him. Josh Mullen on the right and then Anderson through the middle. And I think that'd be quite an exciting team to watch. Yeah, I'd be definitely happy with that. And then the likes of Craig Sibbald would be very unlucky to miss out, but I do think that that's possibly the best team for that standard. Also taking in Colin's point about, the kind of do we still have the players who can play the Livi way? I think Pittman and Obalai would kind of end up giving you that same kind of thing. Pittman with plenty of energy, Obalai just kind of picking the ball up and, disrupting and giving it to whoever. The likes of Nicky Devlin and Jackson Longridge as well. I think they're full of endeavour as well. And yeah, Mullen and Forrest as well. I think they showed plenty of times last season that, they've got enough within them that, they'll be a nuisance. And I think Bruce Anderson as well, once he gets up to full speed, will do the exact same.
Yeah, I don't think my team's too dissimilar to Angus. I've gone a more 4-2-3-1 as well. Just feel that maybe it worked a wee bit more last season, but it's obviously it's fluid enough that it could probably be changed during the game to a 4-3-3.
Not a million miles away.
Yeah, I've gone Stryjek and goals, a back four of Devlin, Fitzwater, Parks, and Longridge. I think we're all fairly set on that for the minute. Holt and Sibbald are my two sort of holding midfielders. Mullen, Pittman, and Shinney in behind Bruce Anderson. Shinney maybe on the left hand side. I'd like to see him maybe similar to what Rangers do with a Ryan Kent as an inside number 10, cutting inside that allows Jackson Longridge to go round on the overlap. I think that would work quite well. Don't want to use the coaching terms of inverted wingers and all this, but I think that would work very well. And Josh Mullen, as you mentioned, down the right. him and Nicky Devlin had such a good partnership last season for, especially that run that we went on. But, just looking at, obviously, that's, a difficult thing to pick out at the minute. Our best 11 from the first game of the season. There's a lot of new signings that we've not seen that probably come into it, if we're being honest, if they're given that chance. But, I've written a few names down here that miss out. Montano, McMillan, Lewis, Penrice, Forrest, Oberlai, Williamson, Riley, Hamilton. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think the squad's very, very strong, which, fills me with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, so we've got another couple of questions which we'll quickly go into. So Kieran Tent actually sent us in another one. I'll kind of put these ones together. So Kieran said, how does the overreaction of some portions of our fan base towards a defeat in Glasgow make you feel? And then the other question I've got is probably linked to the overreaction, which was with Davey. Is Martindale the right man to take us forward? If so, what things have you seen from him to take us forward? If not, is there anyone who you think could do a job for us? Angus, I'll go to you first. So kind of what just can bring you to, so what were your thoughts on the reaction from some quarters? And then, well, yeah, the manager situation apparently.
I mean, the fact that you couldn't finish that without laughing probably sums up everything. Yeah, I'm quite puzzled by the fact that, people have had such an extreme reaction towards that Rangers game in particular. Not really sure what to be expecting. Again, I don't think it was that horrible performance. Yeah, there's a couple of mistakes that we've made, but again, we're playing Rangers, we're going to get, certain things that can happen to us. We're not going to win that. It's damage limitation in all honesty. But yeah, I think we just need to kind of be realistic in that kind of way, and know kind of standards in that. It wasn't absolutely appalling. If we genuinely went there and got beat, 7, 8, 9, where it was an absolutely embarrassing showing, then fair enough. But it wasn't. It was far from that. But not very sure as to where all this kind of hoopla came about. And then obviously with Martindale as well. Again, we've just came into a new season, first game against Rangers, and we've had, the absolute disruption of, the Premier Sports Cup. It's far too soon to be kind of making claims like that as well. So, we've got to see where the team gets to, give them a chance to, get up to full speed, see how everything goes. Again, we've also got a very, very tough start to the season. We played the entire top 4 in the first 6 games of the season. So we've got to be realistic. I know it's great that we've had top 6 finishes the last 2 years, but yeah, we've had 2 top 6 finishes in the last 2 seasons. It's not going to happen all the time. I mean, you look at all the budgets that we're competing against, and people will be like, oh yeah, surely because we finished in that top half the last 2 years, our motivations and that should change. And it's well, not really, because, Dundee have came back in it, Hearts have came back in it. These are 2 massive clubs in the country compared to us. And we've just got to see how it goes. If things go, completely ridiculous, then sure. But after a defeat at Rangers, I don't think that's quite the time to be asking for, heads to be called.
Bruno, you'll need to be careful about what you say, because Davey will probably just banish you from the press room from doing LFC Live. So what's your thoughts?
No, I just think, some of the comments I've seen are absolutely ludicrous. That pretty much covers it, if I'm being honest. I probably do need to be careful what I say in terms of being a club employee, or whatever you want to call it. I think people maybe think that I'm a happy clapper or whatever, all this rubbish. But, if there was something wrong, or there was something that I wasn't happy with, it's my team at the end of the day. I would have an opinion on it. But over the last 4 or 5 years since we were promoted from League One, there's nothing that I've been absolutely devastated about. It's been an incredible journey the club's been on. I just think some people that are, absolutely raging with a 3-0 defeat at Ibrox after being in the game for the majority of it is a shambles. And again, the fact that folk are calling for Davy's head, I don't get it at all.
The way I would kind of look at it is, when Davy took the job last year, we were sitting 11th, if I'm right in saying. We've finished top 6. We've got to a major cup final for the first time in 17 years. And then you've had this summer where there's been, I think Davy said it in the build-up, 17 players go, and then kind of 10, 11, 12 players come in. So you've essentially got a new squad, and then you've had all this disruption. Utter madness. I think the overreaction is too much. And for me, Davy's got my full backing. I think he's proved over the years at the club the job he's done behind the scenes and everything like that. I think merits a bit more time.
I don't think it's a coincidence that when Davy came in pretty much to the club, I think he started doing recruitment. His first season doing recruitment was the League One season, and we got back-to-back promotions from that. He was involved in the coaching team, him and David Hopkin, and then him and Gary Holt. It's absolutely zero coincidence that with Davy being at the club, we are where we are. Yeah, I think he demands maybe a little bit more respect from fans as well. I think some of the shouts are ridiculous, and we should maybe be a wee bit more grateful for what we've got. There's some clubs at the minute that have absolutely shambolic. Look at Celtic, for example. They don't know whether it's Shrove Tuesday or Sheffield Wednesday. So you know what I mean? It's a bit of a shambles. So I think we need to pretty much be happy with what we've got and get a grip, really.
Well, thanks very much for sending in your questions. It's much appreciated. Apologies if we didn't get round to any, but we'll do that segment later on in the season again.
We return to league action at the Spaghettihad as we welcome Stephen Glass's Aberdeen to Livy. Lads, how are we feeling ahead of this one?
I think it's going to be a very difficult game. I think if you look at Aberdeen's start, they had a very comprehensive performance in Europe, 5-1 at Pittodrie, and obviously it's there's a few clubs this season that have almost got that new era kind of vibe to them, and I think that's very much the case at Aberdeen. Dent McInnes was there for 7 years, so Glass came in tail end of last season, and he's had his own pre-season now with the squad. He's brought in, I think, some very good players in the likes of Declan Gallagher. Scott Brown, obviously, is a serial winner, is coming as well. And I think Jet, who we obviously know very, very well from last season with ourselves, and I think I said it last week, I think he'll prove to be a very, very good signing by Aberdeen. And the other boy they've brought in from America, Christian Ramirez, has hit the ground running with a few goals. So I think we're in for a really, really tough afternoon. And our overall record against Aberdeen's not been great in recent times. I know we went up to Pittodrie and won last year and drew with them at home as well. But the vast majority of the time they have got the better of us. But I think it's going to be a very, very tough afternoon for us. As I say, new era Aberdeen fans seem quite buzzing already with their start to the season. But here's hoping we can bring them back down to earth.
Yeah, you kind of got to hope that Thursday night plays is a factor. Obviously they're playing in Europe. Did very well in the first round of that qualifier. 5-3 on aggregate against Hacken, which is very, very good. The 5-1 at home, and I watched the second leg. I'm not really sure as well how they got beat 2-0. They should have been 1 or 2-0 up themselves before Hacken scored their first goal. And I watched them yesterday as well. On that the Red TV or whatever it is. Definitely not through a dodgy stream. But they were very, very good. Dundee United, albeit were poor, but I was impressed with Aberdeen, in particular Calvin Ramsey, young lad at right back, who again we're all Scotland fans. He's one that maybe excites me for the next 2 or 3 years. Great to see that we can produce right-footed fullbacks in Scotland rather than having 14 very good left backs. With Josh Doig now apparently about to go down south. So no, he's looked exceptional in the short flashes I've seen of him, maybe 3 or 4 games now. I think he only turned 18 this weekend, which is frightening. Yeah, he's certainly one to watch. He likes to get forward, and as you say, they've recruited very well. I've got a couple of mates that are Aberdeen fans. I like to have banter with them and things. I was always baffled at the McInnes stuff, but they were all pro McInnes out and things like that, and they wanted a change in terms of the style of football, as you alluded to, Ewan, with the new era. And it'll be very, very interesting to see Stephen Glass's first full season in charge. Scott Brown's come in as sort of player coach, player assistant manager, I think it was, and again he adds a totally different element to them. Again, as I said, I've watched a couple of their games now, and Brett Brown's just looked a Rolls Royce in the middle of the park. He's looked back to his best. Maybe he's not playing, again, no disrespect to Aberdeen whatsoever, but he's not playing with as good a calibre of player in that Aberdeen team. So maybe he stands out a wee bit more. think that's fair to say, but he looks very good. Lewis Ferguson's always a player that worries me, and they still look solid at the back. I think that was the thing from me last season, where I was sort of like, will it work with Stephen Glass before he'd recruited all these, before he recruited Jet, Ramirez. I always thought that they'd be very good going forward, which they've proven. So far, it's very early days though. But I thought maybe, with this attacking, expansive football, that they'd maybe struggle at the back a wee bit. If they're playing a high line, they're pressing high and things like that, they'd be susceptible to a counter attack or something. Maybe we can try and exploit that. But so far so good. They dominated the ball against Dundee United. Kept possession very, very well. Played that high line and again didn't look really under threat at all defensively. So they seem to have struck the balance very well, that they can play attacking football, but they can also defend very well, and that could be a worry for us on Sunday. They're certainly going to be pushing for that third spot. They'll hope. There's no reason why we can't give them a good game, and we have over the last. Well, certainly last season we did. Ewan mentioned that they're sort of been a bogey team for us, unfortunately. But I'm confident that we can maybe get something from the game, hoping that Europe's a factor on Thursday night.
Yeah, by the looks of things, going off of pre-season and the first kind of couple of European games and the opening weekend of the season, seems as if we've got the two toughest games we could possibly have, based on how guff Celtic seem to be. But yeah, Aberdeen, very impressed with them so far. It was always going to be a kind of a tough question to see if Glass, be able to implement the style. You've seen at the end of last season, he didn't quite have the squad that was capable of doing what he wanted to do. You've seen that with the likes of Hoban and Taylor and that being moved on. Obviously, Ross McCrory's dropped back into centre half kind of more permanently now. I think you'll kind of see him operating there, unless Declan Gallagher comes back from injury as well. You'll see him in the back line predominantly. But yeah, I've been quite impressed with him so far. What I'm most interested to see is, how's this style going to end up going when, half the stadium's pitches are, so bobbly and no full of grass and that. I think that'll be probably the most interesting factor. It seems to be going well now, but who knows what'll happen. And I think that's something, with, a lot of noise is made about obviously our plastic pitch and all that, but I think that is something that will suit Aberdeen's style of play right now. The way that they want to, play out from the back, and that is a smooth surface no matter what anybody wants to say. I think Stephen Glass will have his players doing the exact same thing against us. You hear a lot of fans saying about how their teams have to change, adapt to our kind of surface and whatnot. I think Aberdeen will take it in their stride and play their usual game, and I think that's maybe something that will be concerning because they've been very, very good attacking so far. But yeah, I'll just come to you guys and just ask, what ways do you think that we can get against Aberdeen? What do you think we can do? What are our strengths, or what are their weaknesses that could see us exploit them and pick up a point or maybe all three?
I think the midfield battle is going to be very key in this game. If you look back to the game we won up at Pittodrie in February, we really got a hold of the midfield that night, and we didn't allow them to kind of get any proper foothold in the game for good spells. They didn't allow the likes of Ferguson to kind of dominate in the middle of the park, and they've got that kind of aggressive streak in them. Ferguson has a nasty streak in him. We all know Scott Brown has a nasty streak in him. So you don't want them kind of getting on top in the midfield battle, because I think if they do that, we could be in big trouble. We're going to need to try and upset them in that area of the pitch. Bruni, you touched on the two young fullbacks. I can't remember who was playing left back. Was it McKenzie? Is it?
Yeah, Jack McKenzie.
Yeah, Jack McKenzie. They've been getting rave reviews so far, and they're obviously two fullbacks that like to get forward quite a lot. You've got the opportunity to hopefully maybe affect them in the wide areas as well, in that sense. And at the end of the day, yes, they're very good fullbacks, but they're also young and inexperienced. So try and put some pressure on them as well. But I think, as I say, we can't allow them to kind of get a proper foothold in the middle of the park, because they do have the players there that could go and dominate the game and put us under a lot of pressure, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree in terms of the wide areas to exploit. Aberdeen, especially, as I alluded to, with the fact that they play very high, both fullbacks, bomb on, and the young lads as well. So positioning wise, are they fully adaptable to that? Calvin Ramsdale, as much as I rate him as a footballer, I think he was exceptional, and I'm really excited about, as I touched on, his future in terms of Scottish football. But are him and Jack McKenzie going to get caught up the pitch. Can we exploit that? For example, the left back, can Bruce Anderson maybe get in down that channel between the left back and where Considine is? I think, for me, he's got Considine for pace all day. Obviously, Considine will know how to play against Bruce Anderson. I think that'll be a very interesting battle. Bruce up against, whoever it is. Maybe I think they played McCrory. It'll be interesting to see if he makes the move back into midfield, if Declan Gallagher will play for Aberdeen. But no, that'll be a very interesting battle for me. Bruce Anderson knows how to play against the likes of Andy Considine, the likes of Ross McCrory. So obviously they'll know how to play against him, having trained with him for the last 2 or 3 seasons or whatever it is. But that'll be a very interesting battle. But for me, down the wide areas, and as Ewan said, the midfield's going to be key as always. We just need to not make those silly mistakes that we did against Rangers. Defend set pieces well, because they've now got, I think it's Alan Russell in, who was with England at the World Cup and at the last Euros. He's very strong on the set pieces in terms of, I think Aberdeen work on them a lot of the time. They try different things. He's very keen on the movement inside the box and things like that, and set piece routines. So we need to be wary of that. But we also you need to focus on our own set pieces. I think that'll be key for us this year as well, especially the likes of Fitzwater, Tom Parks if he's available. I'd like to see Ayo Obalai as well. I'd like to see guys like that add goals, because we've lost those goals from set pieces arguably in John Guthrie. So I think I saw a stat or something. I think maybe it was on Sports Scene. So I'm not 100% how reliable it is, but it was I think 1 out of 3 goals last season were from set plays. So that's obviously huge. So hopefully we can find somebody to deliver the ball in, that maybe a Josh Mullen, a Shinnie, whoever it is, and we can get goals from that avenue as well.
I think that stat's boosted quite heavily, to be fair. I don't know if that was meant to be like the entire league, every 1 in 3 goals was set pieces, but that's probably because Rangers get 100 million penalties a season. But yeah, heading into this one, obviously, who would you guys like to see lining up against Aberdeen? Would you make too many different changes from the team that lined up against Ibrox? I would imagine it may be the same kind of selection of pool of players, with maybe a few returning from injury. How would you guys want us to go and line up against Aberdeen this Sunday?
I like how you went for referring to Rangers as like the Pro Evolution Soccer version against Ibrox. I like that. I guess I quite enjoyed that. But I think players that will come in, you're hoping the likes of Jacko, Nicky should be available. Getting your kind of first choice fullbacks back in would be an added bonus for this game. And I think we touched on it, Angus, last week. I think we've missed Nicky's kind of forward running from fullback and the threat that he offers on that side. We have missed that a little bit in those Premier Sport Cup ties. So it would be really good to see Nicky get on from the start. Obviously, there's been a kind of number of players with niggles and things like that. Josh wasn't on the bench at the weekend. I know he played in the bounce game with Edinburgh City. Shinnie's obviously not featured since the Cowdenbeath game either. So, we don't know what kind of situation is with these players as well. So I think I'd like to see the likes of maybe Christian Montano come in as well again. I was really impressed with him when he came on against Raith Rovers. Thought he offered that kind of real direct style down that left-hand side. As well against Cowdenbeath, thought he was very good as well. So I'd like to see him come in there, and experienced kind of winger taking on one of these young fullbacks could cause a few issues, I think. So I think that would be one I would like to see come in. But I don't, as I say, I think the fullbacks is one of the major ones. But other than that, it might be maybe 1 or 2 changes, but it depends who's available, to be honest.
I've not really got a comment on the team again. I think that's too tough an ask, with not knowing about injuries, not knowing about who's fully fit, after maybe coming back from isolation or whatever. So I'm not really sure about that. I just hope we do ourselves justice. I would say that we did on Saturday. I think we were fairly solid for the majority of the game, albeit some lapses. But Rangers are a top side. So against a a more evenly matched team. I would say Aberdeen are slightly better than us, but it's a more evenly matched game than it is against Rangers. So it'll be interesting to see what we do with the ball going forward. Hopefully we can create chances and cause them problems. That's pretty much what I'm looking for from the game. I'm sure. Are we going to go on to predictions?
Yeah, I think we're going to predictions. So obviously you guys both correctly predicted last weekend's result by being, very pessimistic and predicting us to get 3 taken off of us. So how would you go for this
5? You predicted 5.
Mr. 5 now.
Don't really recall that, but yeah. Yeah, we'll just come to you first. Can you make it 2 out of 2?
I think Aberdeen have started the season really well and they're kind of on this bit of a bounce. And I think with our unsettled back four just now, I think they've got 2 quite potent forwards in the likes of Ramirez, and I think we could get punished. I really want to be positive and say that we'll go pick up a point, but I think Aberdeen are going to beat us. I think it's going to be 2-1. It's going to be a repeat of the last game at the Spaghettihad.
Pessimistic as usual, Ewan. Callum, what have you got?
I'm going to be a wee bit more positive, and I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I'm hoping, as I touched on throughout my spiel, that I'm hoping that Europe's a factor on Thursday night and that they're a wee bit leggy and we can take advantage of that on the way to a point, our first point of the season, which I think would be a good result, especially given Aberdeen's form. Angus, what about yourself?
I'm just going to throw all those claims I've just made and make myself look like a hypocrite. I'm going to go for 2-1 as well to Aberdeen.
See, he's copying last season's winner. See, he's going with a smart approach there.
Hey, but it's the way to go. It's the way to go.
Well, let's be honest. We hope we're all wrong, and Livy can pick up the first 3 points of the season, and it'll be good to get fans back in for our opening home league fixture of the season.
That is it for this episode of Talk Livi. Thanks very much again to every single one of you for tuning in. If you can, we would absolutely love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply give us a message on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. Abuse is welcome as well.
I'm sure plenty of you could give us abuse, but as Bruni said, we are on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Search Talk Livi to find us and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we have done over the last few years.
That's it for this episode. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, enjoy your week following the Lothian's finest football team, and come on, Livy!
Come on, Livy!
Ooh, yay, Livy!
I'm definitely leaving that in.
No, you aren't. It wasn't. Nobody can prove it was me. So.
Fucking watch me.
Nobody can prove it was me.
A love will never die. West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, no Livingston, it's up to Ambervale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Ambervale Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division.